everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today it is all about the new mini palette from Natasha Denona. When I saw that she was launching it, couldn't wait to get my hands on it. So much to say about it. This retails for $27. I picked it up on the Sephora website. I have noticed that it is available at a few other retailers, so I will link those other retailers in the description box down below. But I was excited about it because I personally love the bronze palette. It is just a ride or die of mine. This palette has a lot of shimmers. That's the exact opposite of this mini. The mini has 4 creamy mattes and 1 shimmer. Now, this is set up similar to her last mini palette, which was the mini Biba palette. That palette also had 4 mattes and 1 shimmer, but one of those mattes was her cream powder formula. This one doesn't have the cream powder. These are all her creamy mattes with 1 shimmer. Now, in the video, I create this eyeshadow look using the palette, and I will also do tons of swatches of this palette next to a few from Natasha Denona and other brands. I do think I have one from NARS that's kind of similar to this, so I'll definitely do as many swatches and comparisons as I can find. So that's what we're doing in today's video. We're gonna keep it short and sweet. It's all about the mini bronze palette. Let's go ahead and jump into the tutorial using the palette. Then we will get into the swatches and comparisons, and then I will see you guys all in my final thoughts. Let's jump into this palette. Okay, here we have 5 shades. These tones are the tones that I would have pulled from the bronze palette. So if I was gonna make a mini palette from that palette, these are the tones that I would have put together. So I'm excited to try it. I'm excited to kind of play around with it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first go into the middle shade here, and I'm just going to kind of carve out the crease with that shade. Now, some of the tricks that I use when playing with pigmented shadows, such as Pat McGrath, Natasha Denona, I like a smooth blend. I don't like harsh lines. So if you are using a super pigmented matte and you're having issues with a harsh line, wipe off the brush like on a towel. So what I do is I have like old washcloths that need to be trashed, right? Well, I wash them and use them for makeup. Not having to use makeup wipes, right? And having that towel to wipe off the brush really, really helps to give a nice blend. So I just wiped off the brush. Now I'm just gonna take what's on the eyelid and also a little bit on the brush and just kind of blend out, line out so that it's a little bit more smooth. Now I'm gonna go into this shade right here on the end. I am gonna put that right there on that brow line where that bone is, right there on that line. And then I'm gonna take that other brush and just kind of blend it out. Okay. One thing I am gonna do is I'm gonna grab this shade right here, which is kind of like the bone shade. I'm gonna bring that like right along the line, and that will also help out any of those harsh edges, just to kind of smooth those out. So I'm gonna go back to that brush, and I'm gonna go back into this shade right here, and I'm gonna bring that right along the outer corner. I am wearing Lashify right now, so they're not like, I can't just remove them like you can a lash. They last for about 5 to 7 days, and I just put them on a couple of days ago, so I have to kind of work around the lashes, which I've kind of gotten used to it. At first I struggled working around them, but I've gotten used to it. Okay, now I'm gonna go back into this middle shade right here and just kind of buff out that line. Also going to bring that shade on the inner corner. Right there. Not bringing it in too far. That shade's really easy to apply. These mattes don't really feel that dry. They feel really good, actually. Quite pigmented and blending really good. So I'm gonna go back into that middle shade right there. Kind of blend out that inner corner a little bit, just to make it look a little bit softer. Okay, now I'm gonna go in with the shimmer shade. So I am gonna put that on the Smith 253 brush. Now I'm going to go on to the lower lash line for a minute, and then I'll deepen everything up. So I'm going to go into this shade first. The lower lash line kind of brings everything together, right? Like it just does. It's like once you put shadow on the lower lash line, it all kind of pulls together. It's really crazy how it does that. I'm going to take my flat tip brush and go into the shade right here. And I'm just gonna kind of smoke that into the lash line all the way around, right at the base of those lashes. Now, I mean, you could totally leave it like this. It is a little bit lighter, a little bit softer on the eye, but I personally want to add a little bit of depth. So I am gonna grab a small little brush. I think I'm gonna use something like this. This is from Morphe and the Ariel collection that he did with Morphe. So I'm going to grab this kind of brush and I'm going to go into the shade. And I like this brush because it's small and more detailed, and I can kind of fit it in certain areas that some brushes won't go. So I'm going to bring that right at the base of my lash line and then kind of swoop it up, just to kind of create a little bit of that lift. And then I'm also gonna bring some of it on the lower lash line right there. I'm gonna take a small detail brush just to have a little bit of fun with it. And I'm gonna go into this dark shade right here. I am gonna follow the brow line right there, that brow bone, and just kind of deepen it up and then kind of connect it to this outer corner just so that it kind of creates a little bit of that definition right there. I just think that's so pretty. And then I'm also going to bring that dark right here at the base of the lashes on the inner corner, just to give a little bit of that smokiness. Not a lot though, like not as much as I added on the outer corner. Now I'm gonna go into this shade right here, and I'm just gonna softly kind of blend those edges a little bit. I'm gonna take my finger into that shimmer shade and just press it right there on the center, just to kind of make it pop. If you can hear my Shih Tzu, she is snoring. She's been snoring really loud recently. She is 13 years old, so she's getting to be an old girl, but it seems like the last few months, her snoring has gotten really kind of gnarly. I guess that's what's come in her old age. She's so loud. Okay, now I'm just gonna take like a brown eyeliner, and I'm gonna go at the base of my waterline up here, just so that my lashes will kind of blend. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and just add a little bit of mascara on the lower lash line, put some blush on, finish the rest of my makeup, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. This is the final look. I wanted to quickly mention the blush that I'm wearing with this is this from Tom Ford. It is the Peach Poison. I haven't used this for a while, and I thought, ooh, that might be really pretty with this makeup look, and it did. It's a little strong, but it really kind of pulled it together and kind of gave me that bronzy look. And then as far as the lippy goes, I grabbed this shade from Hindash. This is his lip liner in the shade Hush. And then I put a little tiny bit of Bare Nectar, which is the shade that I created with Christian Audette, right in the center of the lip. And then I grabbed one of Christian Audette's glosses. This is in the shade Coquette, and it kind of has that bronzy taupey kind of color, and I thought it would be really pretty. So that's what's on the lips, but this is it, you guys. I think this look turned out really, really pretty. I also wanted to mention that even though this palette doesn't have a lighter shimmer, so if you were wanting a lighter shimmer, you could grab whatever highlighter you're wearing, which I'm wearing this one from Hermes, and you could take a tiny bit of it right there on your brush, and then you can just place it right there on the center just to kind of brighten it up and give it a little bit extra pizzazz right there in the center. See how that just like really made it pop, right? So even though the palette doesn't have it, I always love doing that with a lighter shimmer. And you can totally use your highlighter. So pretty, right? That just like pulled it all together. I just love it. So that's it, you guys. This is the final look. Let's go ahead and jump into the swatches. I'm going to swatch this palette and swatch it next to other palettes that I find that might be similar. I'm definitely going to swatch it next to a few palettes that I do have from Natasha Denona. And then I'll also look through my other palettes. I think there's one from NARS that reminds me of this. So we'll get into the swatches, and so you guys can see if this is a palette that you guys really need. I will be sharing the swatches and comparisons with and without a flash. I find that sharing images with and without a flash really gives you the insight to the undertones of the shades. Sometimes the flash picks up the undertones a little bit better than just a regular without the flash. So we'll get into the swatches and comparisons, and then I will jump into my final thoughts. So I will see you guys then. Okay, so I am back to give my final thoughts on this palette. I do hope that those swatches and comparisons were helpful. I made a mess swatching all those palettes, but I wanted to make sure that I included as many swatches as I possibly could. Okay, let me go ahead and get into my final thoughts. First things first, I actually really like this palette, even though I would have loved to have had a lighter shimmer in the palette, but like I said, I can pull from a highlighter or, you know, from another palette or whatever. But what I will say is, even though this shade is more of a bone shade, what I like about it is that it does have a lot of depth, so you can kind of build it. If you have fair, light, medium skin, this is actually going to be a good transition shade for you because it does have more depth than you think it does. Because it's next to all these darker shades, it looks lighter, but in reality, it's really not. So I do like that that shade does build some depth. Overall, the mattes are very, very, very creamy, like very easy to use, a lot of pigment, easy to blend. I mean, they swatched like a dream. Just overall, hands down, typical Natasha Denona, good palette. I don't have anything negative to say about this palette. It's a really nice palette. Now, on the flip side of that, is it something that you need? And that's all going to boil down to what you have in your collection. I will say, if you have the bronze palette already, I don't think you need this. The swatches were close enough, in my opinion, to say that it's just really not necessary. However, with that said, if you do have the bronze palette and you would have liked to have had more mattes, because there are a lot of shimmers in this palette, right? It's a very shimmer heavy palette. Same as the Glam palette. The Glam has a lot of shimmers and just a few mattes. So this is shimmer heavy. So if you have the bronze palette and you absolutely love it, it's one of your favorite palettes, this is a nice palette to have, because even though the shades are kind of similar as far as tones, they're not exact. These are a nice set of 4 matte shadows to pair with these shimmer shadows. All of the mattes in the mini will go with all of the shimmers in this palette. So if this is like an absolute favorite and it's the one that you reach for all the time, especially in the fall, I don't think you'll be disappointed if you buy this and pair these two together, because I do feel like they complement each other very well. If you don't have the bronze palette and you just didn't want to spend the $65, or they're just not colors that you think you needed that many of, right? Because this is a very rusty copper gold heavy palette, right? So if you didn't think that you would use all of these shades in this palette and you didn't want to spend the $65, the mini palette is a nice option. It's all going to boil down to what you have in your collection and what you want and what you need, but strictly keeping it about the palette, it is fantastic, blends beautifully. I mean, all these hours later, I think I did this look about 6 hours ago, so it's still got a lot of pigment. The other thing that I do like about these tones is that it really brings the blue out in my eyes. Because they're opposite on the color wheel, these are the tones that really bring out my blue eyes. Anytime I wear these colors of shadows, I always get compliments on my eyes, always. So if you have blue eyes like I do, these tones work beautifully with blue eyes. If you have the mini nude palette, this is one of my favorite mini palettes from Natasha Denona, but these pair so well together. This shade right here is one of my favorite shadows from Natasha Denona ever. Like, out of all of the palettes that I have from Natasha Denona, this is one of my favorite shades from her. And this shade is a little bit too light. So when I use the mini nude, I typically like to pull from other palettes and pick out a few other mattes to kind of pair with these shadows. But these are gonna work great together. So if you have the mini nude and it's one of your favorites and you love it, I think the mini bronze is going to pair so beautifully with this mini nude. And I'm actually excited to create a look with these two palettes. I think it'll be fun. This is such a gorgeous palette. The mini sunset, not so much. Like this, I actually just want to throw in the trash, but I keep it around for swatching purposes. But this mini sunset is terrible, like one of the worst from Natasha Denona, just saying. But the mini nude, oh, it's so good. Overall, it's a beautiful palette, and I do hope that the review was helpful. Sound off down below how many of you guys have already picked up the palette. If you have, share with us in the comment section down below your experience with it. If you decided to pass on it, let us know why you have decided to pass. I'm just curious. Let's have a conversation. Chat down below. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me in today's video. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys all in my next video. Love you. Bye.